Early in the morning, just a little bit. All right, welcome, guys. Give it a few seconds for some people to join, and we will get started. Hope you all are having a great day. Hopefully, you guys like that intro. We were trying to start a little different. We didn't feel like going through the whole subscription and everything, so we kind of had a workaround with that. So hopefully that came good on your all's end. I think this is the quickest we've done back-to-back on the diners, because we just did one over the weekend and now we're back. But this one's a little different because this is an anniversary diner. So, yeah. All right. So it looks like we've got enough people to join. So if you want to kind of introduce what we're going to be doing a little different, I'll kind of turn our music on.
All right. Well, so I've had this idea for quite a while, and I think I've mentioned it on some of the diners in the past. And as you guys know, Michael and I are really big on the Elvis anniversaries. We love when it works out where we're out on the road and we're documenting a building and we happen to be there, maybe on the same day that Elvis did his show, and that's happened to us several times. I think Providence, Rhode Island was one, some of the others. But I came up with this idea maybe about a year or so ago, where I was thinking, it'd really be nice to go in and just have an open discussion with regards to these sessions, because, anybody that's been an Elvis fan for more than about a day or two knows that, the sessions varied. If we're going to be truthful, the sessions were, there were some phenomenal sessions, and there were some sessions that were, good. And then there were some sessions where it's like, and I don't think it had anything to do with anything other than the fact that, in my opinion, I don't think it had anything to do with anything other than the material. Sometimes it was Elvis's mood, but I think a lot of times it was just the lack of just great material. So we'll get into that a little bit. I just want to set the stage with how the idea came about. So now we're doing this on the 52nd anniversary of Elvis going to Stax Studios. Most of you guys know Stax was a studio in Memphis. It went into disrepair. It was torn down and rebuilt. So the Stax studio that you go to today is not the Stax studio that was there in those days. It was a lot of soul music, rhythm and blues, stuff like that was coming out of there. Isaac Hayes, a lot of other Booker T and MGs. We're going to get into a cool story about that. As you guys know, we kind of weave a lot of stuff together, a lot of threads together. We give you a lot of backstory. So we're hoping that tonight will really be a cool diner where some people can, hear some backstories with regards to, this session, and also just try to bring in like the younger fans who think some things, like I remember when I was really young, I thought every time you heard a record and you heard the girl singing in the background, that it was always, regardless of the year, it was always a Sweet Inspiration. So not the case. It was always, like J.D. Sumner and Stamps Quartet, not the case. It was always Ronnie Tutt, Jerry Sheff, Glenn Hardin, absolutely not the case. So we'll get into that. It's going to be fun. I want this to be an open discussion, and I want it to be where if somebody chimes in with a comment where they're a new Elvis fan and, don't understand some of these things, let's be kind and understand that, not everybody is crazy about this like we are. And so let's see if some people can learn some things tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to drop in the comments section. It'll show up here and we can put it up on the screen for those of you that are watching. As he said, we're going to be talking about the Stax sessions. And for those of you that may not know, when he went to Stax, he did it in two sections. He did July, and then he came back later in December. So we're going to be focusing on July because today is the first anniversary, or not the first, but it was the anniversary of the first part that he did of Stax. So we're going to be talking about that, specifically some of the songs that he did and some of the folks that played with him. So yeah, you might learn something new that you didn't know, and that'll give you a new understanding when you go listen to some of these songs.
Yeah, give you a little bit deeper meaning. You'll understand. Like we used to talk about. When you hear these different people on these instruments, where you always thought it was somebody. You hear that it was somebody different. For instance, like Suspicious Minds. Everybody always thought that that's James Burton on there doing that in 1969. No, it was Reggie Young, who was a phenomenal. You've heard on him on so many things, and you got to understand. A lot of times these these session players were actually called in because there's a funny story about when Elvis did Guitar Man, the Jerry Reed song.
Yeah.
They couldn't get the guitar lick down, so they're like, "What are we going to do? Because we got to do this song." Well, what do? We call up Jerry Reed. Jerry Reed was on a fishing boat out in the middle of the lake, and so they got him, brought him in, and that's the funny story where Jerry Reed came in and said, he's sitting there nervous as could be, and he said Elvis walked in. He said, "God, this is the best looking man I've ever seen in my life." So I always thought that was a cool story. How, um, you know, all these guys were phenomenal. They were professional, but maybe sometimes they just couldn't get that lick. Reggie Young was one of those guys where if you listen to like Dobie Gray's, what's that song that I Drift Away. That beginning is just the coolest opening to a song. Yeah. Just beautiful the way he played that, and it's just so. Anyway, yeah, let's dive in and get into the. So we'll take you back to the day, 52 years ago. Stax. What do you say? About 5 miles, maybe. Don't Google me on this, but I think about 5 miles from Graceland. The trip probably down somewhere in there, maybe a little closer. Yeah. We've been by there. I remember Stax before it was demolished and all that, and it was cool. But it was another one of those places like American Studios. It was just a building, nothing special about it. But this day back then was, this is going to be a little bit more than maybe you want to know, but it was a Saturday, and we even looked up the temperature, and it was cooking that night in Memphis. What would we say, 90 degrees that day?
94.
And 94 that day, and 80 that night. So Elvis, as we all know, did not go anywhere like that in the daytime. So it was, he's rolling in there, maybe 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, because somewhere in there he talks about they were starting off a song. I can't remember which one on the alternate takes. He was joking around and he said, "You've never seen me at 4 o'clock in the morning." Yeah. So they were there at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So, but anyway, out of this session, Stax, July of '73, 10 songs, and we'll kind of just touch a little bit, on each one. But I wanted to give you my, if you look at the songs that came out of there, we'll get into like the, what you thought of it, what you thought of the the quality of the material. We'll get into that in just a minute. But I listed out my favorites out of that series, or out of that session. I'm sorry. Just a little bit, that song. Love that song. It's got that's what we were playing when we came on. If You Don't Come Back, I love that song. Had a really cool, groove to it. Raised on Rock, I think you got a story later on about that, how you said years ago how it kind of reminded you of, me growing up. Find Out What's Happening, and then I've Got a Thing About You, Baby as number 5. So those are my 5. After that, I've got an illustration that after you talk, I got an illustration and maybe it'll sum up kind of how I look at these sessions, but go ahead.
Yeah, so the photos that y'all were seeing on stage or on the screen just now, these are photos of him rolling in the first night. I guess maybe the first morning, depending on when he pulled in, but this would have been July 21st when he was rolling in to record the first few songs. And then
for you youngsters there, that's a Superfly. You knew that, right? Superfly hat there that he's wearing. That was big back in those days. So Paul Googled it, and I was dead on. I was doing that from memory. I was dead on. Thank you, Paul. 5.5 miles, son. I was pretty good on that.
And I got a picture of a contract that I'll put up on for today's songs, but I'll put that up later.
Okay.
But yeah, so he came in and did what were the he did a handful of songs today.
Yeah, so today, I mean, I remember the songs that he did, but I don't remember like what songs on what day. So on the 21st today, he would have first song he did, and the track listing was "If You Don't Come Back," and then he did the song that he never completed. It's different now, and I feel this is just my opinion, but I feel out of this session, as far as his serious songs, like just a little bit. I think that was a fun song. He was having fun with that song. If you don't come back, that was more to me. That was sounding more like a jam session. Those guys were in a groove on that.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're doing it in Stax Studios. Stax Studios was about soul and rhythm and blues, so they were grooving on that. And then Three Corn Patches, and then Take Good Care of Her were the four songs that were done today. So as we know, it's different now. Go back and take a listen to that. If you're new to the Elvis world, it's a song that I truly believe that he wanted to record and complete, but it just didn't get done.
Yeah. And it's interesting to know because I saw on your page over there, and I'll let you go in a little bit more detail, but this was the first time in a very long time that he had been back to record in the studio. And I think you have the date over there of when he was in there in the studio last.
Well, the March, if you think about it, I think what knocked him out of the box as far as the studio, you got Elvis on tour coming out. So they're in there rehearsing. And so the March, when he recorded Burning Love and Always on My Mind, all that stuff, then they went into rehearsal. So right after that, they went into rehearsal, and then they did Elvis on tour, and then he was touring, hammering it hard. So there was no time to go in the studio.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you think about it, he did the March 72, and then he did the April Elvis on tour. Then he went to Madison Square Garden, so they were able to get that record out.
Right.
And then he just had to do, the November 72, and then come January, he's Aloha from Hawaii, so they were able to ride that out for a while.
Right.
And then that record comes out. So then it's like, they probably didn't see a need for him to go to the studio.
And I've always said, and some people may disagree with me, this is my personal opinion. A lot of what I say is obviously my personal opinion, but I've always said, and I think you kind of agree, maybe, we'll talk about it, but I always said that when he walked off the stage in Hawaii, Elvis was still Elvis. Elvis still maintained a phenomenal voice. I've always said that his voice was the best, probably, as far as power and just being mellow. I feel that it was the best the year that he died, 1977. You go back and listen to that Indianapolis show, the final show, vocals off the chart. But I think that what happened is that, in my opinion, that how much higher do you go? What do you do? I've always said that. He was on satellite in front of all those people. You walk off the stage, and then it's like, what do you do?
Right.
So it's like, once you win 5 Super Bowls, well, then what's getting you up for the next thing? There's no higher level.
Right.
And so I think that's where then you started to see the decline in the material. Not forever, because I think there was still some good material in 73, 74, 75. I think it was still good material, but I was thinking today, I wish, something, I'll give you an example, like If You Could Read My Mind by Gordon Lightfoot, Sundown by Gordon Lightfoot, and those just to name a couple songs. But man, if he would have had just songs like that, but we're doing, and not taking away anything from the song. If your favorite song out there from Elvis is Three Corn Patches, that's wonderful. I like the song. And I'll give you an illustration after Michael's done talking. I'll give you an illustration as to what I think was going on with that. But go ahead.
Yeah, man, I'm kind of going to jump ship a little bit, but feel free to, go back to your point. I think, the material is one thing, but I think the fact that for the majority of these sessions, he had his group with him, for I wouldn't say the first time because you had the Burn and Love session, but for the most part, he had.
Well, you had March. I want to say it was like 27th when he went in to do Burn and Love and Always on My Mind and all that. Phenomenal session.
Yeah.
But you know what? He had he had the
Right.
TCB group there with him.
Right.
Okay, all his guys were there, and I think that was because they were getting ready to do the rehearsals. He's like, I'm using my guys.
Yeah, makes sense.
Phenomenal, great session.
Yeah.
But everybody seems to. Well, I take that back. I don't like saying everybody, but a lot of people. I've heard a lot of people that seem to think, because I used to think it when I was little. I used to think that, like I said, every time you heard an Elvis record, it was always the same people. The TCB band was complete for that March session when he did "Burning Love," "Separate Ways," things like that, and the only guy that was like the constant, that was a constant that wasn't there in that group was Jerry Sheff. Mm-hmm. Although Jerry wasn't a constant either because he left and came back. But what I'm saying is everybody else was there. Glenn Hardin, Ronnie Tutt, mm-hmm. Charlie Hodge, Glenn, all of them, they were there. Mm-hmm. Emery Gordy came in. I'll give you a little story on that too. Emery Gordy came in to play bass. And I'm telling you, I've always said that Jerry Sheff was probably the best player I've ever heard in my life. That guy, and I remember when we met him, I told him, I said, I don't know of anybody that was smoother mm-hmm. on that bass than you. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you, you want to hear, put on your headphones and listen to "Burning Love." That's Emery Gordy. That ain't Jerry Sheff, that's Emery Gordy. Mm-hmm. That dude could play the bass. Yeah. He is, I don't know if you guys knew this, but he is married to, if you like country music, Patty Loveless. He's married to Patty Loveless.
Well, it sounds like you have quite a few stories. So why don't you start off with one of your stories?
Well, it's not a story. I'll give you an illustration. So here's what, and maybe you guys can jump in on this. Dolores, thank you. You say loving this conversation. Thank you for saying that. You guys jump in too, please. Yeah. We really want to see some comments up there. What were your favorite songs out of this? Yeah. What did you think of the material? Did you think the material lacked? Did you think? So that'll lead me right into my illustration. And again, personal opinion, so forgive me. I came up, this popped into my head today. I love using illustrations for things. Every relationship you're going to enter in, whether it's with your parents or whether it's a loved one or brother, sister, every relationship that we have is terminal at some point. I mean, it will end. Okay. I look at the material a lot of times like a picture that you would take. Like I shared this story with you today where I said, hey, I had this thought today and I want to share it with you. And I gave you this earlier, so you're just hearing it again. But I think what happens with us and Elvis, who, those of us who are Elvis fanatics, is we're so much fanatics that, he can do no wrong. I've seen people, we do a post and they go, when I do the person who wrote the song, or, Elvis heard it here, like the person who did the original song, I'll say, this is what Elvis heard. And everybody jumps on as quick as they can. Mm-hmm. Elvis did the best. Elvis did the best. If I know anything, I got that because that's what I believe. But what I'm saying is that the material, I think we're so fanatical about Elvis that it's kind of like when if you took a picture of your father, mm-hmm. and you look at the picture and you go, man, that picture just didn't come out really good. But you know what? In a couple weeks or next month, when I see him again, I'll retake the picture and then I'll have that picture. Mm-hmm. And then somewhere along the way, before that second picture is taken, your father dies. Mm-hmm. That's terminal. There is no more pictures to be taken. So what happens with the picture that you took? Mm-hmm. You love it. Yeah. Because that's all you have. You're not going to get another picture. Mm-hmm. So you fall in love with that picture and then you hold it dear. And I think, in my opinion, that's what happens. And my own illustration helped me better understand how I feel about Elvis, is that it's terminal. He passed away. So the material that we have, he's not going to come out, in 1980 with an album that's just phenomenal material because he's gone. He's not going to come out next year with an album with material because he's gone. Mm-hmm. So my point is, that's why you fall in love. Some of the material you may go, it's substandard for a guy like Elvis, a legend, a phenomenon, we'll never see another one.
Yeah.
But because that's all we have, you 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 know the songs that were awesome, Suspicious Minds, you know, a lot of those songs that were just incredible songs. Unchained Melody, when he did that version, unbelievable. How great the art, unbelievable.
Yeah.
But we've learned to love Three Corn Patches.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, you also can put it in perspective with the footage. It's like you see this band footage that is very, very grainy, and you're like, that's what we have. That's what we have. That and photos of him on stage and everything.
Right.
It's like it could be the worst photo that you can't really see anything, but it's like that's what you have.
Yeah, I just again, I think that that's what happens with with a lot of these guys, and I think that demands. We've said this before. Can you imagine being Elvis, where the pressure, if you're like a substandard performer and you're just out there, playing the bars and stuff like that, and if you have a bad night, okay, you have a bad night, and you move on to the next bar or the next town or whatever. But when you set it's kind of like that returning Super Bowl team.
Mm-hmm.
Elvis was a 42-year-old Super Bowl returning team as a human being. He had to come back every time that he went into the studio, and that's this way with all of these phenomenal performers. They're not expected to come out with an okay album. It has to top the last album. It has to be the best material. It has to be Unchained Melody every time. It has to be Rags to Riches, those types of songs that were just, Tomorrow Never Comes. Listen to the vocals on that. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal vocals on that. Yeah. I don't know, man. We just put so much pressure on these people, and I think that's what helps lead to their early demise, but my opinion.
Yeah. So as we kind of shift gears to go specific into the sessions, if you guys want to drop your favorite song from these sessions, we'll kind of see what people are thinking. From what today, you said today's songs were...
Yeah, so he did 10 songs. Today he did, we already mentioned what he did. Then he comes back tomorrow, which would have been a Sunday back then because he started on a Saturday. He comes back the next day with 3 songs, Find Out What's Happening, I've Got a Thing About You, Baby, and Just a Little Bit. My favorite. Yeah. Comes back on July 23, Raised on Rock. I love that song because I think that song is like an anthem to all of us older Elvis fans where, we sit back. I did this probably every day of my life, sit back in my room, with my with my little turntable and, put my Elvis music on. And that's basically what that song is saying. I went back in my room and I was raised on this stuff. And then he did For Old Time's Sake. And then he came back on July 24th and he did one song, Girl of Mine. And then basically he left and Ronnie Tutt, those guys left. Okay. And they were pulled for session players. Mm-hmm. And the session players came in and they laid down rhythm tracks for Good, Bad, But Beautiful, Color My Rainbow, Sweet Angeline, which he would do later when he came back. And then the song that I wish that he would have completed was The Wonders You Perform. And if you go online and you want to hear what the song would have been, it would have been a phenomenal song for him. It'll kind of put you in the mind of Help Me that he did, or Why Me Lord, or somewhere in there. But it was finally done by Tammy Wynette, and it's just a great song. And I think Elvis would have done a phenomenal job on it. So for those rhythm tracks. Those guys were pulled, and then who came in was Bobby Manuel, which you said he's still alive.
Yeah, I saw, yeah.
Yeah, and then Johnny Christopher. On that note, he was on guitar, Johnny Christopher, and you guys may remember seeing his name, but he wrote "Mama Like the Roses." He wrote that for Elvis. That Elvis recorded that, and he co-wrote "Always on My Mind." So that's his kind of claim other than playing with Elvis. And then let's see, another Donald Dunn. He was a session player. One of my favorite stories about this, well, not it's a sad story the way it ends, but Al Jackson, who was one of the founders of Booker T and the MGs in Memphis, who recorded at Stax. He was a session drummer, and they called him at Stax. They nicknamed him the Human Timekeeper. Now, as a drummer, that's a pretty good nickname. But they called him the Human Timekeeper. You can hear him on songs like Green Onions, which I love that song. Just a phenomenal drummer. 2 years after this session, he was murdered in his home in Memphis. So that's and a very young man too.
Yeah. So as you guys saw earlier, I'll put it back up here for you guys. So this is one of the recording information sheets for July 21st, 73. You might see some familiar names up at the top under engineer and looks like representative. And yep, July 21st, 73 at Stax Recording Studios. Time was 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. So I'm sure Elvis was more on the 3 a.m. kind of side. I'm sure that.
I don't think he was there at 9 o'clock.
Yeah. But as you see here, it's got a couple of the songs listed. You got If You Don't Come Back and Three Corn Patches and Take Good Care of Her at the bottom. And it also lists all the, the instruments and the names of people. I think it's kind of funny how they have Ronnie Tutt listed as Ronald Tutt, James E. Burton. You got a couple other familiar names over there. You got Charlie Hodge down there, and then you got some of the vocals on the back or at the bottom. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting to see. It's cool to see this kind of stuff written, especially because, today is the anniversary of when this all went down. So it's cool that we have this. So I just thought I'd share with you guys.
One of the other notes on that, out of all those people you see on that list, the session people that came in and replaced, the guys that did the first work on those first few days. Every one of those guys, with the exception of James Burton and Johnny Christopher, he's still alive. Last I checked, I mean, if he passed lately, I'm sorry, but as far as I know, and Bobby Wood. And if you recall, Bobby Wood and Bobby Emmons were part of there were some of these guys that kind of weaved in and out, but Bobby Woods and Bobby Emmons were the keyboardists. They were part of the 69 session when Elvis recorded Suspicious Minds and that. There's a cool interview with Bobby Wood where he talks about Suspicious Minds, and he said, we knew the first few bars of that song that we had a hit. And he said that he said he had never seen a guy work as hard as Elvis worked during that session. He said he basically destroyed his voice, and you can hear it in those some of those tracks where his voice sounds raw. And so yeah, all these guys are gone. They're just they're all gone, and it's sad when you think about it, how it's just time's eating it up.
Yeah, and if I know it's been out for a while, but I'll show the folks if you don't have it. I'd highly recommend getting it. But it's the Stax sessions. It's got all the outtakes, not all of them, but it's got most of the outtakes and everything. This has been out since looks like 2013, so it's been out for quite a while. I remember when we got this. This was really, I think, like the first set that we got, and we just played this and played this and played this. So yeah, if you guys don't have this already, I highly recommend getting it. I'm sure I think it's on Spotify and all the streaming services.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
I'm a big fan of any time that they put out the alternate takes, because I like, what I really, really love is I like hearing him work his craft. You know what I'm saying? I like hearing him saying, no, I don't want that. I want you to come in here. I want you to do. And I just love that, because he was a master at that. And I was telling somebody the other day, the guy never took like a, what's it called? Like paid for guitar lesson, if you
Mm-hmm.
will. The guy never took a piano lesson. The guy never took vocal lessons. And the guy could play guitar. The guy could play piano. The guy had the greatest voice probably that we'll ever hear in the history of the world. And there'll never be another one like that. But I find it amazing how all that talent, I've always said that all that talent just wrapped up in one human being. And then not only the voice and all that, but usually you have a talent like that, but there's somebody coming in and kind of directing and constructing how they want the song to
Mm-hmm.
sound. He did all that. He was the boss in there. He said, this is what I know. I don't want that. I don't want to hear that. You're going too fast. You're going too slow. And I like how he took control and he was a master at his craft.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hear that in like all of not just this one, but in all of them. But I like how when you listen to a lot of these outtakes, he does a really good job, I think, of letting the musicians do what they think would be best for that song. I mean, there's like you hear some of these songs and how they were originally recorded from the original artist, and it's like a different sound, but it's they did a really good job when you go to Stax Studio. I mean, that's known for soul, and a lot of these songs you can hear that in some of these songs. So I think they did a really good job on that, and it would have been cool to hear some of the songs that they did the jam session. In other words, it would have been cool to hear him record the vocals for that. I didn't really realize until you were telling me all the songs that they recorded the instrumental for, but it was kind of surprising, like kind of over the last decade of his life, how many instrumental songs were recorded for him to do vocals, and he never did
mm-hmm.
them. Because you got like the Moody Blue, Fire Down Below. They did the instrumental for that, and he never did the vocals for that. So it's really surprising how many songs were recorded that he never did the vocals
There were
for.
a lot of people that said, he was in a bad mood for this. And I don't, if you go back and listen to the outtakes, if you go back and listen to the banter in the studio, I don't pick up on that. I was listening to one today where he was like just goofing around like crazy. I don't, like with any of that stuff, I think when you're working, you might have a good hour in there where maybe you're getting tired and you're down and you're kind of burned out. But, and people look at, oh, he was in a bad mood. He didn't want to be there. Maybe he didn't want to be there. Think about that. Are there days where, you love your job, right? But you don't, maybe you're not into it today. But Elvis wasn't allowed, or any of these entertainers, they're not allowed. And again, I'll say one more time, I think it's we kind of pitch in on their demise on that, because it's how do you wake up every day? And I gotta, there's a lot of days where you go, I just don't want to be perfect today, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not allowed to do that. So that's tough hill to climb.
Paul said the Stack CD box set is great, and it's one that he listens to regularly. I agree. I'm the
Yeah.
same way. This one I listen to quite often. Um, but you'll find me listening to the American Sound 69 sessions the most, because that's my favorite session that he did.
Yeah. So while we're on that topic, and I'd really like to see everybody pitch in on this. Talk if you could kind of send some comments in about what y'all think of the material on this. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not shooting down. I think it was let's do it like this. Let's compare the sessions. And I think if we do it like that, then it'll start to make more sense to people, because I think people, well, you're picking on, the song. No, I'm not. I liked all the songs. And like, I go back to my illustration that I gave earlier. I think that in 1973, when a record comes out and it's three corn patches, you're thinking, I wish you would have done, but then he comes out with, like, later on, he comes out with Promised Land. Which one do you like?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He comes out with, I'm trying to think, right, like Raised on Rock. That was a great song. Trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's a rocking song right there. Okay, so that's great, written by, I think, Jerry Chestnut. Great material, phenomenal material. So let's go back to 1969. Listen to that box set from '69 from American Studios. There's not a whole lot lacking in the material. There's a lot of good stuff that came through. because Chip's moaning. Okay, so you got a guy in there going, "Hey, I'm feeding you the good stuff." So he's recording the best of the best. Vocals were on fire. He's on fire because what? He's trying to make a comeback, right? He's trying to re-enter into the world that he's the king of. So he's on fire.
Mm-hmm.
1970, same thing. 1971, same thing. 72, you got Madison Square Garden, you got Burning Love. Man, you're on fire. You got a movie coming out. 73, you do the Aloha special. You've reached probably the top of the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to go from there is back down because you're at the top. So what do you? And tough to stay at the top.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's great. He recorded some phenomenal songs in '76.
Yeah.
And at Graceland, he did. And if you listen to those vocals, man, Hurt. I don't know how you top the vocals on that.
Yeah. So Emily was asking, how many other songs are there that the audio was recorded but Elvis never got to sing on?
I mean, on this session, or
let's just go with this session.
So this session, I think I told you 4. So I said the rhythm tracks that were recorded by the session players when they came in were Good, Bad, but Beautiful, Color My Rainbow, Sweet Angeline. And now when I say they laid down the rhythm tracks, and Elvis, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Elvis recorded stuff like all over the place. He recorded stuff in people's houses. He recorded stuff in his house. He recorded stuff at Graceland. He I think at the end he was burning out and he just didn't want to go to the studios anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I think he was just tired.
Yeah.
And so what's Elvis do? Bring the studio to me. So I think he recorded because he did I think Paul even, said the same thing that I'm getting ready to say, but he did the vocals for Sweet Angeline in Palm Springs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, I'm sorry, I got off track. The Wonders You Perform. So 4 songs that they laid down rhythm tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you expand that out, The Fire Down Below at Graceland, and they did some other tracks there. And I can't recall exactly, but I think they're probably, I don't know. I can't put a number on it because I don't know, and I'm not one of those people that speculate. I either know it or I don't say it. So I'm not going to speculate, and I'm not going to give you a number that would be false. So I think it happened quite a bit where, hey, we're going to do these songs. We'll come back at a later time, and they got shelved, and it never happened. So to put a number on, I don't know. But for this session, it's 4 songs.
Yep. Yeah, Paul says as 15-year-old when New Blue came out, I loved Way Down and still do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Way Down was a great song, but it came out at a sad time because that was the end. I remember that.
Yeah. More stories or info?
No. The only other thing I want to touch on is because we're waiting on some comments for some folks, is that for like the younger fans, I want to make sure that everybody knows that, I'll take this session for instance. When you hear the female voices in the background, It's not always the Sweet Inspirations. Mm-hmm. It's the girls, Jeannie Green and what's her name? Mary and Ginger Holiday. They were with Elvis for the American Studio session, American Sound in Memphis in '69, and then they came back. They did some work with him in '70 and '71, and then they came to Memphis to do this session here. So when you're hearing, if you don't come back and stuff like that, those girls that you hear in the back, look them up. There's a cool picture. I don't know if you can pull up. Can you pull up a picture of Elvis with Mary and Ginger Holiday? There's a really cool picture on there of those 3 together. And I think Jeannie might even be in one.
Looking for it.
But yeah, I just just trying to help some folks out who, are maybe new to the Elvis world. Okay, there they all are.
All right, give me 1 second. I'll get it up for you guys.
Sorry we're just trying to give you a visual so you can see who and what we're talking about here.
Sorry, folks.
He's working hard to get this picture up, but we may not be able to get it up. He's trying.
That should be it now.
So anyway, while he's doing that, sorry for the delay. I just, just for for the newer fans that are coming on, just trying to give a little bit of background to some of these, trying to give you the names to some of these other people who, if you've been a fan of what we do for a long time, you'll know that we talk about the quilt a lot. And what I mean by the quilt is Elvis is the quilt, but it takes all these threads running through to make it a quilt. And all those threads running through that quilt are people like James Burton, Ronnie Tutt, J.D. Sumner, Charlie Hodge, guys that work for him. They help make that, because without a lot of these people, I've always said, and there are people that have jumped on me for this. They're going, no, Elvis would have been Elvis if none of these people would. And that's save it. You got to. Elvis was looking for a certain sound, and yeah, he could have gotten a drummer, somewhere else. It wasn't going to be Ronnie Tutt, and he fell in love with Ronnie Tutt. Ronnie Tutt fell in love with him. Ronnie Tutt said, Elvis never told me. I've seen an interview where Ronnie Tutt said, Elvis never told me one time what to play. Man, that's freedom. If you're a drummer, so you know what he's talking about there. When you can get back there behind Elvis in concert and play what you want to play, and you want to play to his movements and stuff like that, that's a match made in heaven. I don't think that every drummer could have accomplished that. Mm-hmm. I just don't. I think they would have got back there and they would have freaked out, going, God, what's he doing up there? Because Ronnie Tutt said he was a hard guy to follow. Mm-hmm. So the whole line of Elvis would have been Elvis with anybody, but vocally, sure, yeah, because he don't need anybody for his vocals. But I'm saying it takes all these people coming together to make it all happen. So, yep, there's the girls up there. And like I say, they were with him for the session in '69 at for Suspicious Minds and those songs, and
which is when this photo
exactly American Studios, and then they came back. And if you go to Memphis now, you can go to the 827 Thomas Street. That's where the American Studios were. I think that's the address.
It's like a Dollar General.
It's a Dollar General now. It's so sad. My mom and I went back there in '77. I think it was '77. And it was a carpet store. And we went in, and the guy says, everybody comes in here. All the sightseers come in. They want to see where Elvis recorded a song. We went back there, and all the the panels were still up, and the carpet, there was like stuff on I don't remember exactly, but it was like there was carpet and stuff on the walls for, to deaden the sound and everything. All that stuff was still in there. Mm-hmm. And it was really cool. And I just remember thinking, man, Elvis stood right over there and recorded Suspicious Minds. And now it's, probably where he stood as the checkout aisle or something. I don't know, but sad.
Yeah.
I wish all this stuff could be saved. And that's, for all the people out there that don't know what we do, who are new to our channel, Michael and I travel the country documenting buildings that Elvis performed in. We've been all over the United States doing this. We've been in over 100 buildings. We love doing what we're doing. We only do it to preserve Elvis's legacy, and that's the only reason that we do it. We haven't been out there in a while. For those of you who are just joining us, Michael got accepted into the fire academy. He's been in training for 7 months. So we've been basically just kind of on life support with our channel because he's had a lot going on, but he graduated and he's now on the job, and we're going to be hitting the road August 10th, getting back out there. We're so excited. We're going to do a live when we get to where we're going. We're going to surprise you because we're doing a building we've been at before, mm-hmm. but we're going to go in and fully document this, and you guys are going to love where we're going because there's going to be a lot of information coming your way.
Hotel. But like we said in our last in our last diner, we won't, unfortunately, due to scheduling, we will not be able to make Elvis Week this year,
Right.
but we will be there next year. We're still looking at possibly going during the birthday in January, but we still have to see about that. But because of scheduling, we can't go to Elvis Week this year. But we're going to make up. We're going to make it up by going back on the road. We got a bunch new equipment. It's going to be better quality videos. One of the pieces that we got is a drone, so we're going to be flying the drone over some of these places, giving you guys a different perspective of the buildings, maybe a bigger.
Try to fly it in some of the buildings.
Yeah, we're going to try to fly it in the building. See what we can do there. The cameras, audio, all that stuff we've upgraded in that time. So when we come back, it's going to be bigger and better. And we're really excited. I mean, we have just been stuck for 7-8 months, so we are very eager to get back out on the road. I mean, if I had it, my way, I'd prefer to fly because we love flying and going to the airport. But it makes more sense for us to hit the road on this one. So.
For those of you that are new to what we do, we have been doing this. I've been doing this for many, many years. I've got pictures on my old Kodak 110 camera. I don't know if maybe it's Instamatic camera. They're in a book over here. But we're high tech now. We do all video and some really nice pictures and stuff like that. And our main purpose is to go into these buildings and show you where Elvis performed. Some people make a big deal. But it's a big deal to us because we like going to where he was. And I always tell people, you can go to Graceland to see where he lived and where he played. We take you to where he worked, and there's a big difference. I want to show you what's changed about the building. I want to show you what's not changed about the building. I want to show you. We've gone in so many buildings where the pole that's like right over here that you see in a picture. We do a lot of then and now work, and we always try to say, hey, there's that pole that's in this picture from 1975 in Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah.
And we'll go there and there's the pole.
Yeah.
And there's the numbers on the wall that were there in 1975. And to us, that's, and to walk backstage and to just kind of walk where you walked and to get ready for the show and stuff like that. That's what we do. So we hope you guys enjoy what we do. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of these buildings we get, like pieces, from the building that relate to Elvis, like our seat over there from Mobile Civic Auditorium, which is no longer there. But trust me, you will not be able to get it in frame. I see what you're over there looking to see if you can pull it over here. But
what if I held it right here?
There are so many things that you would knock over if you tried to get it.
We've got a seat over here. There's a picture taken. There was a big argument on. Here I go with that. It wasn't an argument. It was not like the argument from Little Rock where people were arguing, saying that this backstage stuff was not done on Elvis on Tour, was not done at Little Rock, Arkansas. It was done in Richmond, and Michael and I put an end to that argument because we'd been to Richmond and there are no windows backstage in Richmond because it's underground. But there was an argument about this picture here, and we knew the answer to it. Yeah, that picture right there. That picture was everybody said that picture was taken in Huntsville, Alabama.
They don't see it yet. Hang on.
Okay, when it comes up, you'll see it. But anyway, everybody said that picture was taken in Huntsville. The picture you're going to see when it comes up was taken in Huntsville, Alabama. Well, we've been to Huntsville, Alabama, and we've also been to Mobile. Well, that's where that picture was taken, was in Mobile, Alabama. And that chair there that you see to the left of Elvis, I don't know, are they seeing it the way we're seeing it?
Yeah,
it might be the other way.
No, they're seeing it.
Okay.
But that oval chair.
Yeah, that oval chair back there. We have that chair, and if you'll notice, if you go back and look at our video on Mobile that we did, we take you in that room, and all of that stuff that you see on the wall there, that mirror with the lights around it to the left there, to his right, that was all still there. The ceiling tiles, those changes in the wall, and then that thing you see up there on the right that looks like a vent, it's not a vent, it's a speaker to tell the entertainer or the star that's in that room they could talk to him through that. So it's a speaker that said basically 5 minutes till showtime or whatever. So, and you see Elvis's glasses there on the table to the right. All that stuff is still there. was still there because the building's not there anymore. That's another reason we do what we do, is so that we can take you to places just like that and stand exactly where he stood, and we can save it. It's saved forever. The building is gone, but you all will be able to see it forever.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess we can start wrapping up. The Stax anniversary sessions that we have. Today being the 52 years. That's what we've been talking about. And yeah, I mean, it's really cool. We just thought we'd do a little something different. Uh, kind of give you guys a little bit more depth and detail about the sessions. Again, he did a July session and then a December session of '73. So that's what we've been talking about. July 21st, '73, and Alfred's asking, it would be great to take questions from the viewers. If I'm picking up what you're putting down, feel free to ask any questions on here if you want. Just drop
Yeah, always. When you guys come on here and watch it, cut in and just put the question up there, and we'll be glad to. Again, for those of you that know us, we don't guess, we don't speculate. I'll tell you what I know. I know a lot about Elvis, but I'm not going to claim to be a 100% know-it-all and know every little. I'm not going to know the thread count and his jumpsuit stuff like that. I don't know that stuff, but I will give you what we know, and we know quite a bit, especially about the buildings and where he performed and stuff like that.
Yes.
Glad to answer anything you got.
Yeah, feel free to drop any questions or comments in the comment section. They'll pop up and we can answer them. And but other than that, I think we can start kind of wrapping it up.
I did see somebody say thank you on a comment a little higher there that said thank you for clearing up about the sweet inspirations or whatever. That was our goal, is to kind of let people. Yeah, it's what so I was recording with him. Yeah, and that's fine. And you know what? That's sometimes I think they want to ask a question, but they're like, well, I don't want to look like I don't know. Well, if you don't know, ask the question, and we'll be more than glad. We're not going to laugh at you. But there was a time when I didn't know. So, and there's still a lot of stuff about him that I don't know, but I try to research. So if you get off of here and you want to have some fun with it, like I said, on this date, 52 years ago, you can go pull it up and put your headphones on and listen to, if you don't come back, listen to the song that Elvis never finished. It's called It's Different Now. 3 Corn Patches and Take Good Care of Her. So listen to listen to them all. But if you listen to those 4 songs, that's what he was putting down. Well, by now, he had already put it down because he got there last night. So when you were waking up, he was finishing.
He was going home.
He was finishing up, going back to Graceland. So, but that's how he worked. He went out in the middle of the night, and then he did most of his work in the middle of the night. So,
yeah. So, any last minute questions or comments? Feel free to drop it in. I don't know. We can't give you a yes or no. We might come back on here to kind of promote our trip coming up. So it'll be maybe in a couple weeks. We might jump back on here to do one more diner and kind of promote our trip going out there, because we got a lot of stuff that we're going to want to push out there for you guys. Like I said, in the last diner, we might have we've been working on a website for you guys, maybe some merch. We're just still working on all that stuff.
Right.
So we're going to try to get all that out, but we're going to probably come back later before we go on our trip to promote it.
And I always like to tell folks that come on here, we do this for the love of Elvis. We have never received a profit for what we do. We just don't. Not knocking anybody that does. If you write a book and you make that's wonderful, because that was your work. But the way I look at what we do, just sharing the facts and going out and document these buildings, that's not, I just want to do it because I love doing it. So Emily asked a question up there. She asked about, where'd it go? Okay, so so several people have asked, other than this session, what are some of the other songs that Elvis never recorded? Off the top of my head, I can't sit here and just roll them off, but I'll give you an example. And when they recorded Graceland, in '76, Jerry Sheff had put down, they were putting down Elvis was going to do the vocals for Fire Down Below, and it never happened. And you want to hear a cool, go listen to Fire Down Below, and that was going to be a cooking song, man. That was going to be phenomenal. It was right along the lines of Way Down. It's kind of in that same sound frame. So Emily, go listen to that. Just pull it up, and we'll let you see what you think of what it would have sounded like. How Elvis. I think it would have been a great song for him.
Yeah, and Sally says she likes the memorabilia in the room. You guys have only ever seen this corner, but the photo back here was taken by Keith Alverson in Huntsville. This photo was taken by George Hill in Bloomington, Indiana in June '74. And then you got our scarves from St. Paul '77 and Lincoln, Nebraska '77. And then that one picture that you can kind of see over there with the cape, that was taken by Keith July 3rd of '73 in Atlanta. So we've always talked about maybe showing you guys like the room because you guys have never seen it. So we might do that later on. But yeah, again, we were here talking about the Stax sessions that happened today, 52 years ago. And we'll probably come back on here in a couple weeks and, promote our trip coming up and all that. So
as a closeout, just before you go, I just want to jump in there and say my plan is because he comes up with a lot of great ideas. This was an idea I came up with all by myself, where I just thought it'd be really cool to go in and break down the session. And so what I want to do, because we love doing stuff on anniversaries of when it happened, I'm just going to keep looking ahead, and we'll do the anniversary for the next session, which for this would be in December. We'll come back and we'll do kind of a breakdown again. Look at the material, solid stuff. I put this session right here with the material just to go back and reiterate. I put this there was some really great songs on there that I really like. Just a little bit, Raised on Rock. Those are my favorite, and some others. If You Don't Come Back, I love that. But it was kind of like I wished I guess what I'm saying. I wished Elvis he would have been handed better material for that session. That's what I was hoping for. Some of the songs that were out at that time would have been better suited for him than for the person that actually recorded them. So moving forward on the anniversary of these different sessions, we'll come in and we'll do the same thing that we did because we have all the information for all the sessions that he ever did. So we'll come back and share all that stuff with you. So look these names up. People like Al Jackson, that drummer that I told you, session player at Stax Studios, one of the founding members of the Booker T and the MGs. They called him the human timekeeper. That's cool to just go look that guy up and just learn a little bit about him and then learn how he was connected to Elvis. It kind of broadens the picture out for everybody a little bit when we find out who these people were.
Yeah. Sex sessions were good. I don't.
Thank you, Alfred.
Appreciate that. Yeah, we would recommend getting the this box set, the Stax, because it's got all of the. Again, I say all, but it's the some of them outtakes. the outtakes from both sessions. So I highly recommend getting that. As we leave you guys, I'll try to put one of these little songs on here from that was recorded today. So we thank you guys for watching. And again, we'll probably come on here in about a couple weeks to promote our song, but we really appreciate you guys watching. So I'll try to pull up If You Don't Come Back, which was recorded 52 years ago.
52 years ago today. So that's going to be our outro. And just take a listen to this, and then we're going to sign off, guys. Thank you, everybody, for coming, spending your evening with us. We appreciate it. Well, we think so. We had a little technical difficulty. There we go. 52 years ago tonight. The car was
You were gone, and I almost lost my mind. If you don't come back, yeah, no. And all the people I love crazy, take this crazy man. I ran on the street in my stocking feet, and police have been robbed. If you don't come back.